Hi everyone. I decided to change my scenery because it is so nice outside. I'm here on my deck, um, being safe, but still able to enjoy some fresh air and get some vitamin D. It is super nice outside, so I hope you guys can have some time to spend outside as well. We will be reading chapter 14 and chapter 15. We left off where Charlie and the other four children have lined up outside the Wonka factory. So we'll see, hopefully, that they'll go in, and they were just about to meet the famous Mr. Wonka. So, chapter 14, Mr. Willy Wonka. Mr. Wonka was standing all alone just inside the open gates of the factory. And what an extraordinary little man he was! He had a black top hat on his head. He wore a tailcoat made of a beautiful plum-colored velvet. His trousers were bottle green, his gloves were pearly gray, and in one hand he carried a fine gold-topped walking cane. Covering his chin there was a small, neat, pointed black beard, a goatee. In his eyes were most marvelously bright. They seemed to be sparkling and twinkling at you all the time. The whole face, in fact, was filled with fun and laughter. Covering his chin, and oh, how clever he looked! How quick and sharp and full of life! He kept making quick, jerky little movements with his head, cocking it this way and that, and taking everything in with those bright, twinkling eyes. He was like a squirrel in the quickness of his movements, a quick, clever old squirrel from the park. Suddenly, he did a funny little skipping dance in the snow, and he spread his arms wide and he smiled at the five children. Sorry. Cooper, no. No. Sorry. Cooper just found a stick on the deck and he was trying to play with it. Where was I? His voice was high and fluty. "Welcome, my little friends. Welcome to the factory. Will you come forward one at a time, please?" he called out. "And bring your parents. Then show me your golden ticket and give me your name." "Who's first?" The big fat boy stepped up. "I'm Augustus Gloop," he said. "Augustus!" cried Mr. Wonka, seizing his hand and pumping it up and down with terrific force. "My dear boy, how good to see you." "Delighted, charmed, overjoyed to have you with us." "And these are your parents? How nice! Come in. That's right, step through the gates." Mr. Wonka was clearly just as excited as everybody else. "My name," said the next child to go forward, "is Veruca Salt." "My dear Veruca, how do you do?" "What a pleasure this is. You do have an interesting name, don't you? I always thought that a verruca was a sort of wart that you got on the sole of your foot. But I must be wrong, mustn't I? How pretty you look in that lovely fur coat. I'm so glad you could come. Dear me, this is going to be such an exciting day. I do hope you enjoy it. I'm sure you will. I know you will. Your father? How are you, Mr. Salt? And Mrs. Salt? Overjoyed to see you. Yes, the ticket is quite in order. Please go in." There's Veruca. The next two children, Violet and Mike TV, came forward to have their tickets examined, and then have their arms practically pumped off their shoulders of the energetic Mr. Wonka. And last of all, a small nervous whisper came from Charlie Bucket. "Charlie!" cried Mr. Wonka. Well. So there you are. You're the one who found your ticket only yesterday, aren't you?" Yes, I read all about you in this morning's paper. Just in time. My dear boy, I'm so glad. So happy for you. Overjoyed. Is this your grandfather? Delighted to meet you, sir. Excellent. Is everyone in now? Our tour is about to begin, but do keep together. Please do not wander off by yourselves. I shouldn't like to lose any of you at this stage of the proceedings. Oh, dear me, no. Charlie glanced back over his shoulder and saw the great iron entrance gate slowly closing behind him. The crowds on the outside were still pushing and shouting. Charlie took a look at them. Then, as the gates closed with a clang, all sights of the outside world disappeared. "Here we are," cried Mr. Wonka, trotting along in front of the group. "Through this big red door, please. That's right. It's nice and warm inside." "I have to keep it warm inside the factory because of the workers. My workers are used to an extremely hot climate. They can't stand the cold. They'd perish if we went outdoors in this weather. They'd freeze to death." "But who are these workers?" asked Augustus Gloop. "All in good time, my dear boy," said Mr. Wonka, smiling at Augustus. "Be patient. You shall see everything as we go along. Are you all inside? Good. Would you mind closing the door? Thank you." Charlie Bucket found himself standing in a long corridor that stretched away in front of him as far as he could see. The corridor was so wide that a car could easily have been driven along it. The walls were pale pink. The lighting was soft and pleasant. "How lovely and warm," said Charlie. "I know, and what a marvelous smell," answered Grandpa Joe, taking a long, deep sniff. All the most wonderful smells in the world seemed to be mixed up in the air around them. The smell of roasting coffee and burnt sugar and melting chocolate and mint and violets and crushed hazelnuts and apple blossom and caramel and lemon peel. And far away in the distance from the heart of the great factory came a muffled roar of energy as though some monstrous, gigantic machine were spinning its wheels at breakneck speed. "Now this, my dear children," said Mr. Wonka, raising his voice above the noise, "this is the main corridor. Will you please hang your coats and hats on those pegs over there and follow me? That's the way. Good. Everyone ready? Come on then, here we go." He trotted off rapidly down the corridor with the tails of his plum-colored velvet coat flapping behind him, and the visitors all hurried after him. It was quite a large party of people, when you come to think of it. There were 9 grown-ups with 5 children, 14 people in all. So you can imagine that there was a good deal of pushing and shoving as they hustled and bustled down the passage, trying to keep up with the swift little figure in front of them. "Come on," Mr. Wonka cried. "Get a move on it, please. We'll never get around today if you dawdle like this." Soon he turned right off the main corridor into another slightly narrower passage. Then he turned left, then left again, then right, then left again, then right, then right, then left. The place was like a gigantic rabbit warren, with passages leading this way and that way in every direction. "Don't you let go of my hand, Charlie," whispered Grandpa Joe. "Notice how all these passages are sloping downwards," called Mr. Wonka. "We are now going underground. All the most important rooms in my factory are deep below down the surface." "Why is that?" somebody asked. "There wouldn't be nearly enough space for them up on top," answered Mr. Wonka. "These rooms we're all going to see are enormous. They're larger than football fields. No building in the world would be big enough to house them. But down here, underneath the ground, I've got all the space I want. There's no limit, so long as I hollow it out." Mr. Wonka turned right, he turned left, he turned right again. The passages were sloping steeper and steeper downhill now. Then, suddenly, Mr. Wonka stopped. In front of him, there was a shiny metal door. The party crowded round. On the door, in large letters, it said, "The Chocolate Room." Chapter 15. The Chocolate Room. "An important room this is," cried Mr. Wonka, taking a bunch of keys from his pocket and slipping one into the keyhole of this door. "This is the nerve center of the whole factory, the heart of the whole business, and so beautiful. I insist upon any rooms that this is going to be beautiful. I can't go into ugly factories. In we go then, but do be careful. My dear children, do not lose your heads. Don't get overexcited. Keep very calm." Mr. Wonka opened the door. 5 children and 9 grown-ups pushed their way through. And oh, what an amazing sight it was that now met their eyes. They were looking down upon a lovely valley. There were green meadows on either side of the valley, and along the bottom of it, there flowed a great brown river. Along the river, a steep cliff over which the water curled and rolled in a solid sheet, and then went crashing down into a boiling, churning whirlpool of froth and spray. Below the waterfall, and this was the most astonishing sight of all, a whole mass of enormous glass pipes were dangling down in the river from somewhere high up in the ceiling. They really were enormous, those pipes. There must have been a dozen of them at least, and they were sucking up the brownish, muddy water from the river and carrying it away to goodness knows where. And because they were made of glass, you could see the liquid flowing and bubbling along inside them. And above the noise of the waterfall, you could hear the never-ending sucking sound of the pipes as they did their work. Graceful trees and bushes were growing along the river banks, weeping willows and alders and tall clumps of rhododendrons with their pink and red and mauve blossoms. In the meadows, there were thousands of buttercups. There, cried Mr. Wonka, dancing up and down and pointing his gold-topped cane at the great brown river. It's all chocolate. Every drop of that river is hot melted chocolate to the finest quality. The very finest quality. There's enough chocolate in there to fill every bathtub in the entire country, and all the swimming pools as well. Isn't it terrific? And just look at my pipes. They suck up the chocolate, carried away to other rooms in the factory where it is needed. Thousands of gallons an hour, my dear children. Thousands and thousands of gallons. The children and their parents were too flabbergasted to speak. They were staggered. They were dumbfounded. They were bewildered and dazzled. There's the chocolate fountain. They were completely bowled out of their hugeness of the whole thing. They simply stood and stared. The waterfall is most important, Mr. Wonka went on. It mixes the chocolate, churns it up. It pounds it and beats it and makes it light and frothy. No other factory in the world mixes its chocolate by waterfall. But it's the only way to do it properly. The only way. And do you like my trees? He cried, pointing with his stick. And my lovely bushes? Don't you think they look pretty? I told you, I hate ugliness. And of course, they are all edible. You can eat them all made of something different and delicious. And do you like my meadows? Do you like my grass and my buttercups? The grass you are standing on, my dear little ones, is made of a new kind of soft, minty sugar that I have just invented. I call it swudge. Try a blade. Please do. It's delightful. Automatically, everybody bent down and picked up one of the blade of grass, and everybody, that is, except Augustus Gloop, who took a big handful. And Violet, before tasting her blade of grass, took the piece of world record-breaking chewing gum out of her mouth and stuck it carefully behind her ear. Isn't it wonderful? Whispered Charlie. Hasn't it got a wonderful taste, Grandpa? I could eat the whole field, Grandpa Joe grinned with delight. I could go around on all fours like a cow and eat every blade of grass in the field. Try a buttercup, cried Mr. Wonka. They're even nicer. Suddenly, the air was filled with screams of excitement. The screams came from Veruca Salt. She was pointing frantically at the other side of the river. Look over there, she screamed. What is it? He's moving. He's walking. He's a little person. It's the little man down there behind the waterfall. Everybody stopped picking up buttercups and stared across the river. She's right, Grandpa. It is a little man. Can you see him? I see him, Charlie, said Grandpa Joe excitedly. And now everybody started shouting at once. There's two of them. Oh my gosh. So there is. There's more than two. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are they doing? Where did they come from? Here are those little men that they are talking about. Who are they? Children and parents alike rushed down to the edge of the river to get a closer look. Aren't they fantastic? No higher than my knee. Look at their funny long hair. The tiny men, they were no larger than medium-sized dolls, had stopped what they were doing, and now they were staring back across the river at the visitors. One of them pointed towards the children, and then he whispered to the other 4, and all 5 of them burst into peals of laughter. But they can't be real people, Charlie said. Of course they're real people, Mr. Wonka answered. They're Oompa Loompas. That's the end of this chapter. Please comment below what you think and what your opinion is about the Oompa Loompas. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.